Hi everyone, and welcome to this masterclass on pro bono. This is one of Law Prisonet's last masterclasses of the year, and we're really glad that you're here. We've got a great panel today and a lot of interesting things to talk about when it comes to pro bono, so we hope you enjoy. So we always start our masterclasses with a learning outcome. So by the end of this masterclass, you should know what pro bono is, know how trainees and junior lawyers get involved in pro bono work, and know the importance of pro bono work in the legal profession and in the wider world. So before we get going, I'm just going to quickly go over some key bits of the masterclass. So firstly, please use the online question tool to post any questions you have. And I'll be posing them to our speakers at the end. I also tried to keep an eye out if any relevant ones come up during the conversation as well. So please also use this tool if you have any audio/visual problems during the masterclass, and we'll do our best to help you. Please note this masterclass will be recorded. The recording of the session will be sent to all registrants in a follow-up email tomorrow, and will be available on our YouTube channel very shortly as well. And please feel free to post about the masterclass on social media and tag us. We always see attendees posting on LinkedIn about their experience and what they've learned, which is always great to see from us, from the LCN team, but also from the panelists and firms as well. And finally, we have another upcoming masterclass next month, and that one is all about understanding employment law. So check out the Law Prisonet's events page for all the details to register, and there will also be a link in the follow-up email as well. Okay, so with that out of the way, I'm just going to start off by asking all the attendees to answer the poll on the screen, so panelists can get an idea of who's joining us. Okay, seems like we've got a pretty mixed bag of law students across different 3 years. We've got non-law students, postgraduate, and some people in work, which is a good mix. And then I think it's really useful to use to run one more poll just to get an idea of how much you already might know about pro bono. So same as last time, just answer the question on the screen. So how much do you know about pro bono? Seems the majority of you said a little. Some people said absolutely nothing, which is certainly fine because that's what the session is all about. And there are some people that know a lot, so we hope we can still give you some interesting insights. That's it. Thanks to everyone that's submitted the polls. I'm just going to share the results. And yeah, with that out of the way, I think we can go ahead and get started. So I think we can start. It'll be nice to start with an introduction from each of the panelists. So to get an idea of who they are, their firm, and how they're involved in pro bono. So I'll just start with how the panelists are on my screen. So Imogen, if I could start with you, please.
Thanks, Demeter. Hi, everyone. Firstly, I'd just like to start by saying thanks to lawcareers.net for organising the event and inviting me to be a panellist. I know that when I was a student at university and even in the early stages of my career, I found events like this really useful. So hopefully you'll all find it insightful. A bit about me. My name is Imogen. I'm a solicitor in the banking team at Dentons, based in the firm's London office. I'm also one of the firm's top contributors to pro bono work, and I've been involved in a number of key projects over the last few years. I'm a pro bono champion for the banking team in London, and that involves me helping to raise awareness of pro bono and the projects and opportunities that are available at Dentons, as well as trying to increase engagement and participation amongst colleagues in my practice area.
Perfect. Thank you, Imogen, and we're glad to have you as well. And LaToya?
Hi, Demeter. Yeah, just to echo what Imogen said, thank you for inviting us on this panel. It's great to be here. So I'm LaToya Robinson, Senior Pro Bono Social Impact Advisor at Clyde Co. I'm based in Manchester. We're a global law firm, so we have a global pro bono and social impact practice. I work closely with the global head to look after our programs in the UK region. And prior to being in the pro bono social impact team, I was at Clyde as a fee earner. So I have some sort of background knowledge, let's say, and an upper hand knowing how fee earners can get involved in this work and balance their billable work with pro bono work.
Perfect. Thank you, LaToya. And last but not least, Ellie.
Hi everyone. Again, yeah, thanks for hosting this lawcareers.net, and thank you all for turning up. My name's Ellie. I'm a newly qualified associate in the dispute resolution team at Travers. I trained here, so I've been here for just over 2 years, and over the course of my training contract, have been involved in kind of a variety of the pro bono offerings that we have. So working as part of our Domestic Abuse Response Alliance, helping with our Green Tech Legal Collaboration program as well, and kind of research projects for Justice, which is a legal reform charity. So a variety of initiatives.
Great, thank you. And yeah, it's fantastic to have you on this panel. And I think we can just jump straight in. I'm going to start with sorry, my question, Doc, was Ellie, if I could come back to you to start with, what is pro bono?
Yeah, so pro bono is lawyers offering free legal advice to individuals or organisations who wouldn't necessarily be able to kind of afford or have access to that legal advice. So it's, a really important part of the work that law firms do. And often, it is helping individuals who need it most. But with some of the wider programs, a lot of the time the focus is on more like long-term goals as well, community development, social justice, things like that.
Perfect. Thank you, Ellie. And LaToya, why is pro bono important to the legal profession and society?
So first and foremost, it promotes access to justice. Many individuals and community groups cannot afford legal representation and are not eligible for legal aid. So pro bono work ensures that they can still sort of enforce their rights and navigate complex legal systems without or with help, should I say, of lawyers. And without pro bono, those people just simply wouldn't have any recourse to justice. But in addition to that, it also strengthens the legal profession's social role. It builds skills and professional development for lawyers, enhances reputation and community engagement, and addresses, as I've just mentioned, gaps left by the cuts in legal aid.
Great, thank you. And Imogen, how does pro bono differ from the other types of legal work?
So the main difference between pro bono work and fee-paying work is that the client or the recipient of the legal advice or services doesn't pay for that advice or those services. Pro bono work is done on a voluntary basis rather than in return for a fee. However, I think it's important to note that the same rules apply to pro bono work in terms of professional conduct as for fee-paying work. So the same high levels of client service should be provided to recipients of pro bono work, notwithstanding that they're not paying for that service.
Yeah, thank you. And any other specific differences? I mean, maybe from experience, how does it differ from other legal work aside from the fee?
So a lot of the pro bono projects that I work on are very different to what I do on a day-to-day basis at Dentons. So I'm a transactional banking lawyer. I don't do any contentious work, so I don't go to court or do any sort of litigious work. So I try to do a variety of pro bono projects, and actually a lot of the pro bono things that I've been involved in the last few years sometimes do have a contentious angle to them. So it could be helping somebody who has been made is taking their employer to an employment tribunal over various issues, or it could be somebody who's been served an eviction notice by their landlord, or it could be somebody who's seeking asylum in the UK and they need to make a court application. So yeah, the pro bono stuff that I tend to get involved on is very different to what I do on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, there's a lot of different projects that you can get involved on, and something for everyone, really.
Yeah, and then just sticking with you on that topic, what was your introduction to pro bono, and how did you first start getting involved?
So when I was studying at university, I studied law and joined the Pro Bono Society, which partnered with various charities and other organisations in the local area. In my final year, I started volunteering for 1 day a week at a charity which provided free legal advice on housing matters. I started in an administrative capacity to begin with, so I worked on reception, took phone calls and helped make appointments for people to meet with advisors. And then eventually, over the course of that year, I actually built up to becoming a housing advisor as well.
Great, thank you. And LaToya, same question. What was your introduction to pro bono, and how did you first get involved?
Yeah, so my introduction to pro bono work was prior to coming into our pro bono team. So I've been in the team now for about 18 months. I've been at Clyde's for around about 9 years, and the majority of that time I was a fee earner. So I got involved in a pro bono project about 3 years into my time at Clyde's. It was with a charity that provides free legal advice to mothers in prisons who want to re-establish contact with their children. And as a mother myself, that was something that really resonated with me as a mother, but not to say that I don't have a criminal background, but I resonated with the being mother part. So that was my first introduction to pro bono work, was working on that project. And then I moved into the team to do pro bono work full time, but also assist with setting up projects.
Thank you. And Ellie, same question for you.
Yeah, so I did English as my undergrad, so I didn't have really any pro bono experience during my undergraduate degree. But when I was on the GDL at the University of Law, they had a good pro bono program in place. So I got involved in a few different areas there. I volunteered at my UK visa, so it was helping clients with their immigration processes, helping them, fill in and file their forms, because a lot of it is just kind of navigating the bureaucracy and the kind of the red tape with a lot of these processes. I went to court with a client more. There was a qualified lawyer there actually putting forward their case, but it was to be there more as a support role, because obviously first and foremost, this is a client-facing role, and I think that is one thing that pro bono does give you. It really gives you exposure to a wide variety of clients, and a lot of the time they're in vulnerable situations. So kind of being used to and kind of being prepared to dealing with all those different situations.
Yeah, thank you, Ellie. And just sticking with you, because there's an interesting question from the audience, and because you trained recently. Someone asked, have you seen pro bono work directly influence a trainee's development or future seat choices? In what ways has it shaped the careers of junior lawyers? I don't know if that's something that's happened to you, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of the development, completely, the pro bono work that you get, just because the teams tend to be smaller, you get a lot more responsibility as a junior lawyer on a pro bono matter. So by being involved in pro bono, you definitely have a quicker development. You're more likely to be kind of having that client exposure, leading on client calls, having a first go at, drafting really important documents and correspondence. So yeah, definitely helps in terms of development. In terms of informing seat choices, it didn't really affect my seat choices, but I obviously can't speak for others. Pro bono, is on offer regardless of what seat or what practice area you end up in. So I'm not sure how much it would. However, if you are doing a piece of pro bono work where it is contentious and you are going to court, I mean, that kind of exposure, if you haven't yet done a contentious seat, if you've enjoyed that process, I can see how it might lead you to then want to do a contentious seat.
Perfect, thank you, Ellie. And I do see some questions coming up about interesting projects and stuff, which we'll touch on later in the masterclass, so stay tuned. And my next question is, again posed to everyone, is what is your firm's pro bono strategy? So Imogen, I could start with you, please.
Sure. So Dentons hired a new pro bono manager in 2023, who introduced a 5-year pro bono strategy for the firm, which was subsequently approved by the firm's leadership team. So that is now in force. The focus of the strategy is on developing a pro bono practice that is integral to the firm's culture and has a number of different strands to it. Firstly, we have a 5-year roadmap to 80% participation in pro bono projects across our lawyers. This is quite an ambitious target. The firm's historic rate has been about around the 50% mark, so an increase to 80% would be really great. And we're making great steps towards meeting that target. One of the other strands was expanding the scope of the pro bono practice to offer a diverse range of projects. We believe that there's pro bono projects out there for everyone. For example, we have recently partnered with a grassroots organisation called the Trans Legal Clinic, which provides free legal help to trans and non-binary people across the UK. One of the other pillars of the strategy was to build the firm's external profile in the pro bono space. And also there's a plan for general high levels of pro bono collaboration with our fee-paying clients as well. There with various recommendations within the strategy, such as increasing the number of pro bono hours that count towards associates' bonus targets, and also including pro bono hours and utilisation data, which have all been put in place.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Imogen. And LaToya, some questions for you. What is your firm's pro bono strategy?
Yeah, so similar to Dentons, we introduced a sort of full-time head of pro bono role a few years ago, who's now the global head of pro bono and was an employment solicitor with ourselves. And she introduced a strategy which is now in place. Our long-term pro bono and includes social impact strategy is to establish a pro bono culture, which we're sort of well on the way with now. Things have changed compared to bringing before we brought in the head of pro bono, and to increase support and participation both geographically and across all roles within the firm. We're also focusing on commercial client engagement. So we want to develop successful collaborations with key commercial clients on pro bono initiatives, which is something that we had a survey recently called Have Your Say survey. And that was something that a lot of lawyers were really interested in terms of developing their skills and developing their business development skills as well in terms of engaging with clients. And they're really interested in creating those connections when it comes to pro bono initiatives. Building a strong and strategic program and partnerships. So we have partnered with an array of charities across the globe to assist us with that, especially strategic partnerships, and developing pro bono capability, having appropriate systems, data and resources for our global team to excel. We're a small but mighty team, but we managed to get the job done. And then finally, to have a clear external representation and recognition. So, you know, whenever there's awards, we're in award season at the moment, and we like to be able to put ourselves forward and have the recognition for the things that our lawyers are doing to make a difference in our communities.
Great, that's all great detail. Thank you. And Ellie?
Yeah, so we similarly have a dedicated pro bono team that's headed up by Sam Cotman and supported by Priya Bansal. And then they kind of organise and manage all our pro bono offerings, but there's involvement from, you know, every level in every department across the firm. So as these, you know, help is needed in all of the areas that we work in, you know, that's involvement from everyone across the firm. We focus on 4 key pillars, which is climate, sustainability and the environment, vulnerable people. So that's kind of specifically helping survivors of domestic abuse and human trafficking, the rule of law. So that's, you know, making sure that everyone has access to justice and the justice system is kind of treating everyone fairly, and also diversity, inclusion and social mobility. So those are the kind of 4 key pillars that we're focused on. I have also just have a link to, I'll try and send it in the chat so hopefully everyone can see that, which kind of shows a breakdown of those 4 pillars and specifically the charities and organisations that we partner with, and, you know, specific case studies as well, in case that's helpful.
Perfect, thank you, Ellie. Thanks for the resource. Yeah, I see that question in the chat from someone, and they're wondering, maybe this one might be useful for Imogen or Ellie time, but if you get to pick the pro bono work that you do, or is it more up to the firm and what's available?
I'm happy to answer that, Dimitar. Certainly at Dentons, you get to pick the projects that you'd like to work on. So whether that's the existing projects that are on offer, but also there's a lot of encouragement that if there's a particular cause that you feel strongly about and would like to support that isn't currently catered for, there's a strong encouragement for people to propose that and get involved with making those projects happen. But no, it's not compulsory, and you very much it's your choice what you'd like to take part in.
Great, and Imogen, sort of on that topic, sticking with you, how do you contribute to your firm's pro bono strategy?
As I mentioned at the beginning when I did my introduction, I'm one of the firm's pro bono champions. So as part of that role, I promote pro bono work and opportunities across the firm amongst my banking colleagues and try my best to encourage those colleagues to participate in pro bono projects. I also personally participate in a range of pro bono projects. So in particular, I've invested in recent years a significant number of hours on projects working with charities both here in the UK and overseas, providing legal advice and support to asylum seekers and stateless people. I'm also a regular contributor to a letter writing clinic, which we partner with the Prisoners Advice Service on, whereby we provide legal advice and support to individuals who are currently in custody in England and Wales.
Perfect, thank you. And Ellie, how do trainees and junior lawyers get involved in pro bono? Well, so we sort of discussed some opportunities, but
Yeah.
what opportunities are on offer?
So I can kind of speak from a Travers perspective, but I imagine it's a similar process in most firms. But when I joined, we had a talk from the pro bono team that kind of set out all the opportunities there were to get involved in pro bono. And then a preference sheet went around where you could indicate any particular interest or areas that you wanted to volunteer in. And then they try and match you up as and when, the work comes in those areas. That preference sheet, you can update it. So, the opportunities are there, and I would say at most firms, that there are now pro bono programs in place. So it's kind of making sure that if you want to be involved, prioritizing that and, putting your hand up for opportunities that come along.
Perfect, thank you. And Imogen, how would you say you balance the billable hour and the busy lawyer life with the pro bono commitments?
That's a good question. So I think the key to delivering a good service to pro bono clients, it's no different really to the fee paying work. It requires effective communication and time management. The majority of the pro bono projects which I tend to work on are group projects. And as you've touched on, as a transactional banking lawyer, there will be pinch periods where I'm extremely busy with fee earning work and perhaps have limited capacity to work on pro bono matters. But the great thing about having a team working on a project is that there will usually be at least one person in the team who's got some capacity. So it's just a matter really of communicating with each other and covering for each other. For example, we run a legal advice clinic called Pop Law, which runs every Tuesday evening in London. We have a rota of volunteers and you're usually assigned to 3 clinics a year to attend. There have been times in the past when I've not been able to attend my assigned clinic due to work commitments. So I've basically just reached out to the other people on the rota and organised the swap. And likewise, I've also picked up other volunteer slots when they've not been able to attend. I think, as I've already touched upon really, as with fee paying work, it's important to communicate and manage expectations with clients. Not all projects for pro bono are particularly time sensitive. So if there aren't, court deadlines and things involved, then things don't always have to be done by a specific date. But, if I've promised to do something by a certain date and circumstances occur, which means that I might not be able to meet that deadline, then I always just let the client know. And I think as long as you communicate effectively, clients will usually always be okay with that.
Thank you. That is really good to know. And just quickly coming back to the access to justice aspect of pro bono, LaToya, what role does pro bono play in improving access to justice?
So pro bono work plays a critical role in improving access to justice, especially in the context of reduced legal aid funding and growing unmet legal need. And in that way, pro bono work fills gaps left by legal aid cuts caused by the Legal Aid Sentencing and Punishment of Offenders Act, or LASPO as we like to call it. Pro bono services help bridge this gap by offering free legal advice and representation to those who cannot afford it or are ineligible for legal aid. It supports vulnerable communities, so pro bono lawyers assist individuals facing complex legal needs such as housing, immigration, welfare benefits, who might otherwise not be represented. Another role is it strengthens the legal ecosystem. So organisations like the National Pro Bono Centre and the UK Collaborative Plan for Pro Bono Work work to build infrastructure, share resources and foster collaboration among law firms to make pro bono work more effective and sustainable. And then not a final role, but a final role that I'll mention is pro bono work empowers legal professionals by offering lawyers opportunities to develop advocacy and leadership skills, engage in meaningful work that aligns with personal professional values, and to collaborate across firms and sectors. So as you can see, there are sort of many roles that it plays, but I think the sort of most important one is well, all of them actually. I'm not going to say which it is. All of them, yeah. There are many roles that it plays.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Ellie, what does the future of pro bono look like?
Hopefully there'll just be kind of continued growth. It's definitely become more of a priority in recent years, as it should be. It's a really important part of what law firms do. I think the, growth areas, I imagine 10 years ago that there probably wouldn't have been such a focus on kind of the climate, environment, sustainability, pro bono work, and I imagine that will continue to play an important part and probably be a growth area. I think any time that there's also kind of developments in the legal field, so new regulation around AI and tech, that's going to become a lot more of a focus as any kind of pro bono clients. We do a lot of work for startups that have founders from like ethnic minority backgrounds, and so we support them in starting up their business. And as the world gets more complicated and we have all these new regulations, I guess there'll be more of a focus on those growth areas. We've also seen this year in the US pro bono being more politicized. I hope not to see more of that in the future. I don't think that that's an issue in the UK, and I don't see that being an issue in the UK. That's my hope. Famous last words, but that's something that has happened, and maybe people weren't expecting it to. But hopefully, that's not going to be a long-term trend.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. And LaToya, are there any particular areas of law where pro bono work is more essential than it is in others, or can we say more critical?
Yeah. I suppose it depends on where in the globe you are. So I was attending a global pro bono forum this afternoon, and there were pro bono lawyers there talking about the needs in, for example, Brazil, and how sort of human rights law is a big thing there. In the UK, I would say pro bono work is especially essential in areas of law where legal aid is limited or unavailable. Key areas being housing and homelessness, immigration, asylum, welfare benefits and social security, sort of right down to family law, employment law. But as I say, it sort of, for the UK, but as I say, for globally, it really depends on where in the world you are and sort of what your economic status of that region is.
Great, thank you so much. And I know some of the attendees were asking about more specific examples, and Imogen and Ellie have prepared a very quick case study about some pro bono work that they've done. So, Imogen, if I could perhaps start with you.
Sure. So Dentons is a member of something known as the Greece Pro Bono Collaborative, which is a collaboration between an NGO called European Lawyers in Lesvos and 8 international law firms who support ELIL by seconding their lawyers on a short-term basis to assist their legal teams in Greece. ELIL provide free, high-quality legal assistance to asylum seekers in Greece. In Greece, there's no state-provided legal aid available for asylum seekers before they have their first asylum interview, meaning that most of those people attend their interview without ever having spoken to a lawyer. ELIL therefore looks to bridge that gap by helping asylum seekers prepare for their first interview, as well as providing other resources such as research, group information sessions, and supporting memorandums to accompany an individual's application for asylum. Earlier this year, I was seconded to ELIL on a short-term basis to support their team on the Greek island of Lesvos. During my time there, I attended preparatory meetings with asylum seekers. I carried out research, drafted supporting documents, and I also manned a drop-in legal clinic, which was on site at the refugee camp in Lesvos. After attending a meeting with a couple from Haiti who had travelled to Greece to seek asylum, I was asked to undertake some research and prepare a supporting document to accompany their application. The couple had fled Haiti due to unrest and to escape gang violence that was happening in their city. A gang had attempted to recruit the husband as an informant. He refused, but then was unfortunately subject to a number of threats to his life and also some attempts to harm him. I spent a number of hours gathering evidence about gang violence in Haiti, and in particular the city where they had lived, in order to prepare a memorandum which would be submitted in support of their asylum application. Prior to finishing my secondment to ELIL, I was really pleased to hear from the Greek lawyer overseeing the couple's case that their application for asylum had been successful. The couple were extremely thankful for our assistance, and it was really rewarding, really, just to see how my specific work and part in their case had led to a positive outcome and the life-changing impact that it had made for them. During my time at ELIL, I saw firsthand how hard the small team there worked and how much they really cared about helping people. I felt really proud to be a small part of that, and it was just a fantastic and hugely rewarding experience that I'll always remember, and I feel really privileged to have been able to participate in it.
Great, this is really interesting, Imogen. Thank you so much for sharing. And Ellie?
Yeah. I have done a lot of my work during my time at Travers as part of our Domestic Abuse Response Alliance. And that was a program that was set up in, I think, 2022 by Sam, our head of pro bono. And it's now an alliance of 10 law firms kind of all working together on this program. So this ultimately helps survivors of domestic abuse get in place the legal protections that they need. In this one case in particular, you know, we had the client come to us. It usually starts often by, you know, in a very informal interview, I guess, in terms of kind of getting their story and kind of piecing together a chronology of events. And then on their behalf, we make a application for a non-molestation order, which is kind of ultimately a restraining order in the civil courts. So we will, you know, put together that application, gather evidence, go to court, and hopefully the court will grant us that non-molestation order. And then post that point, technically, you know, on what we can advise, our job is done because that's in the civil courts. We're not criminal lawyers, but we do support them kind of through the criminal process as well. So in this case, we had our NMO put into place. The abuser was arrested and, you know, stayed in custody. And over the course of 8 months, you know, we accompanied our client, you know, to all the hearings and the sentencing hearing and bail hearings. And again, even though we're not criminal lawyers, a lot of that job for people who are in those vulnerable positions is just being, you know, there for support. And even though, again, not criminal lawyers, but kind of explaining what is going on in court, explaining what the next steps are, being a kind of go-between between the police, the barrister, the client. A lot of times, just because the court system is underfunded, there's a lot of miscommunication and things don't always get communicated to the client, and that can make what is already a stressful situation even more stressful. So it's just being there to kind of guide them through that whole process. The result of the case was, the non-molestation order for 12 months, and then in the criminal court, it was 8 months in custody, followed by a 6-year restraining order. So, it was a good outcome in that case.
Perfect. Ellie, thank you so much as well. Very interesting to hear about, and I know our audience are also very pleased to hear some actual examples that you've done. And then LaToya, how important is for aspiring lawyers to understand the role that pro bono plays?
Yeah, so it's very important for sort of aspiring lawyers to understand the role that pro bono plays, not just for the benefit of society, but also for their own professional development. And in terms of reasons why, those would include, for example, upholding access to justice and helping to bridge the gap for individuals who I've mentioned can't afford legal representation, fulfilling their professional responsibility as a lawyer when aspiring lawyers become lawyers. As lawyers have a duty to serve the public interest, and pro bono work is a tangible way to uphold this responsibility and contribute positively to the legal system. But also understanding the broader legal landscape. So pro bono work exposes aspiring lawyers to social justice issues, policy gaps, real-world challenges that shape the legal profession, and helps them to become more empathetic and socially aware.
Thanks so much for sharing. And Ellie, we've spoken about obviously the importance of pro bono in society, but what benefits can pro bono have for aspiring lawyers themselves?
I think a key benefit, especially if you kind of are studying law, where it's very theoretical and it's the concepts, is seeing that play out practically. And at that, it's a good way to know, actually, I'm studying law, but is this something I want to do as a career? Getting that exposure early on, the client-facing exposure. This is a client-facing industry. Do I enjoy that aspect? Do I find the legal research that I'm doing interesting? Do I enjoy reviewing contracts and strategizing? All of those things you can get experience by doing pro bono before you officially embark on your legal career. And so it's a useful way to have an indication of, is this kind of work something that I'm going to enjoy, and do I want to continue down this career path? It's also really key in developing those skills, so communication skills, client skills, research, drafting, reviewing contracts, all of those things. It provides a really good foundation and base before you go into the workplace.
Yeah, thank you so much. And but Imogen, if I go back to you, what are the key skills aspiring lawyers can develop for getting involved in pro bono? I know Ellie sort of touched on this a little.
Yeah, I mean, I think pro bono projects are a really great way to upskill, particularly in the first few years of your legal career. As Ellie touched on earlier, you'll get a lot of client contact right from the beginning. There'll be drafting and research tasks. You'll be able to develop your project management skills, and those are just a few things. You'll also likely find yourself working on projects involving areas of law that you're not familiar with, and you'll definitely feel out of your comfort zone at times, but it is, on the whole, really incredible, enjoyable and rewarding work. It's also a really good opportunity for you to network internally with other colleagues at your firm and help to raise your internal profile. So I mentioned earlier that most of the projects that I work on at Dentons are group projects, and typically I work on projects involving colleagues from a cross-section of departments across the firm, some of who that I might not otherwise cross paths with on a day-to-day basis. I think really the more of it you do, the more confident you'll become. And as you increase in seniority as well, and the more that you do, you'll have the opportunity to lead and supervise projects. So I mentioned earlier that we have a drop-in legal advice clinic, which we run every Tuesday in London, called Pop Law. I've supervised those clinics on a number of occasions, and I'm also currently leading an asylum project in collaboration with a charity called Asylum Aid to help stateless people establish and be able to remain in the UK.
Great, thank you, Imogen. And my next question is sort of a question I want to pose to all the panelists. I think if I could just stick with you for that one. What's your advice for getting involved in pro bono, perhaps as a law, non-law student, people that are not currently legal professionals?
So I think if there's a particular cause that you'd like to support, then that is a good place to start. So at university, I think most universities, I think, probably have a pro bono society now, and that's open to non-law students as well as law students. So don't feel that you're excluded if you're not currently studying law. I think certainly once you, if you go into a legal firm and join as a trainee, there'll be probably a pro bono committee there as well. At Dentons, we've got a variety of projects. You know, we've got things that support victims of domestic abuse. We work with asylum seekers, and I mentioned earlier we've got a recent partnership to support trans people. I think my other tip really is just to have an open mind. Take yourself out of your comfort zone. So, you know, you will be asked questions that you might not immediately know the answer to. You'll be asked to look in other areas of law that you might not be familiar with, that either you haven't studied at university or that you don't do sort of in your day-to-day role. And I think just enjoy it. It's incredibly rewarding pro bono. You get to meet a lot of very interesting people from all works of life, and you can, you know, it's really impactful work. You can make a huge difference to these people, and it's something that I think everybody should take part in if they have the opportunity to.
Thank you, Imogen. And LaToya, same question. What kind of advice would you give for getting involved in pro bono?
Yeah, just to pick up on what Imogen said about choosing sort of a cause that matters to you, whether it's housing, immigration, family law, just an area that resonates with your values, because passion fuels commitment, right? So your enthusiasm will shine through your work. And then I should have started with this one first, but start early and stay curious. So, you know, get involved with pro bono opportunities as soon as you can, whether it's through your university law clinic, student-led initiatives, external organizations. And also, when you do get involved in the work, then treat it like real legal work, because it is real legal work. Pro bono clients deserve the same level of professionalism, diligence, and respect as paying clients. So that's something that I always ask people to sort of bear in mind from the get-go. But yeah, those would be my sort of pieces of advice.
Thank you so much. And Ellie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's all kind of been touched upon by Imogen and LaToya. Yeah, you know, look to your university societies if you are still studying. I always found that if there was something I was interested in that wasn't immediately or easily visibly on offer, you know, just search for things in your area. Like, there tends to always be, you know, a need for people to help. So, you know, you can always do that. And as you know, LaToya said, when you are involved, commit to it 100%. Stay really open to the opportunities that come your way. And I think as well with legal advice clinics in particular, you know, that's a really good starting point. You never know what you're going to get when you go into those clinics. It could be a really straightforward debt claim, or it could just be, you know, something completely different. And a large part of that skill in those situations is trying to just be a good listener and decipher the important facts, and then how you can help someone. A lot of the time, pro bono clients are very grateful that someone's just listening to their issue. So, you know, always being open-minded and committing 100%.
Great, thank you. And Ellie, sticking with you, how did you sort of make pro bono a core part of your legal career, and what's your advice for those who are like looking to do the same?
I think it's with, I guess, most things in life, just making it a priority. Like, I knew that when I was applying to firms, I wanted somewhere that had a really strong pro bono program. I enjoyed being involved in pro bono over the course of my legal studies, and I always felt it was something where I was particularly passionate about, I think, because it was, individuals, and it was just so important to them that it becomes so important to you. So I knew that I wanted, somewhere that had a good pro bono offering. When we had those initial talks and preference sheets came round, I made sure I was, submitting that preference sheet, following up any kind of opportunity that came out on a firm-wide level, who has capacity, who's available. I'd always put my hand up. So if you want to be involved, just making it a priority. And if it isn't kind of immediately available to you on a silver platter, seeking out those opportunities yourself.
Thanks, Ellie. And Imogen, how about yourself?
Yeah, just to add really to what Ellie's just talked about, I think pro bono, when you first start doing it, it can actually be very daunting. But as with a lot of things in life, the more of it that you do, the easier that it becomes. So I mentioned earlier that when I was at university, I volunteered for 1 day a week at a charity which provided housing advice. And I started out as a receptionist, sort of taking inquiries, and then eventually they sort of entrusted me to actually start delivering the advice, which was a daunting experience to begin with, but I soon got the hang of it, and you become a lot more comfortable the more of it that you do. I think it's important to have an open mind, be flexible, and try new things, identify causes and projects which you feel particularly passionate about. And as Ellie mentioned, if there aren't existing opportunities in areas that you would like to work on pro bono projects for, firms are generally open to suggestions for new causes and projects to support. So have those conversations and try and get the ball rolling. I'd probably also suggest starting off small and building up. Don't say yes to all projects possibly that come your way, because it's quite easily find yourself overwhelmed and possibly a bit overstretched too, while you try to balance the earning work at the same time. I think in the early stage of your career, it is very important to that pro bono should supplement your fee earning work. But yeah, I think if you want it to be a core part of your legal career, I think there is an element of you having to seek it out as well as seeing what comes into your inbox and lands on your desk. I think, as Ellie mentioned, if you know that pro bono is something that is important to you and that you want to be involved in, then when you're looking at law firms for training contracts or vacation schemes or whatever it may be, have a look at the firm's website. They've probably got a section on there about things like pro bono. Have a look at the sort of projects that they're involved in, and what that involves.
Perfect, thank you so much. And Ellie, I know we sort of touched on that and spoke about opportunities that students can do, but were there any other ways aspiring lawyers could find pro bono work?
I feel it's kind of, what's been mentioned, go to your society first and foremost, and see if there's anything already in place. You can, if there isn't anything already in place, your law society might have contacts that you might not have, to get some kind of program in place. Just what Imogen said, the same way that if when you're at a firm, your firm doesn't have an initiative that you would like them to have, similarly at uni, you can try and put that into place. Like a lot of work experience as well, if it's not immediately there, sometimes I know I did this when I was trying to get general legal work experience, just researching, seeing if any there were kind of listings online. If not, an email's never hurt anyone. Reach out, see if they need help. Not everyone appreciates cold calling. If you don't hear back from your first email, maybe leave it at that, but you never know what might come of it.
Yeah, thank you, Ellie. And LaToya, did you have any other ways to add to find pro bono work?
Yeah, just to mention a few organizations. So sort of maybe the Free Representation Unit, or FRU as it's known as, which provides free representation in employment and social security tribunals, and law students can get involved in that, representing real clients and gain advocacy experience. And then perhaps the National Pro Bono Centre, which is a hub for activity in the UK. Students can get guidance there, and links to existing schemes and charities. And then, we've already touched on, obviously, university law clinics is a big one, support through court as well. Hopefully organisations that you might have listed on your website if students want to have a look there.
Yeah, and I think we had a question sort of about, say you managed to get pro bono experience, say, well, how would you show it in applications, and would it help you stand out? Could anyone address that one?
Yeah, I think it definitely will help strengthen your applications. As Imogen said, pro bono really does help you upskill. So you're just showing one initiative that you've kind of put yourself out there and you're getting that legal experience. And two, you will be a better lawyer or trainee solicitor for it. It will just give you something to talk about, a practical skill to talk about, and you will learn from something from that experience as well. And it's always good to have those real life experiences to talk about in your application and also an interview.
Perfect, thank you, Ellie. And I think the last question to ask everyone is, what's your favourite thing about being involved in pro bono? Imogen, if I can start with you.
Sure. I mean, I think it's just getting to meet and work with lots of different people, whether that's colleagues in other teams at Dentons that I don't ordinarily work with, but also the clients themselves. You meet some people from all walks of life, very interesting people. And I think someone mentioned earlier, when you go to an advice clinic, for instance, you don't know who's going to walk through the door. So it's great for client contacts and all those sorts of things. But also, it's just lovely, really, when you receive feedback from clients about the help that they've received and the difference that it's made to them. You can see that it's sort of the personal aspect and impact that it's had on a person, and that's it's really nice to receive that kind of feedback.
Definitely, thank you, Imogen. And LaToya, same question.
For me, and I guess this is one of the main reasons why I sort of moved from fee earning into the pro bono social impact team, is having the chance to collaborate with just inspiring partners. So working with grassroots charities, legal clinics, international NGOs, it means that I'm sort of constantly surrounded by people who are passionate and mission driven. And that sense of shared purpose for me is energizing and motivating. So that's one of my favorite things.
Yeah. And Ellie?
Yeah, similarly to both Imogen and LaToya, you really see the difference that this work makes to people's lives. It really comes across. It's a lot more personal. As Imogen said, it's a real breadth of clients, and so it does feel very rewarding. And a lot of the times, people's experiences kind of puts everything into perspective for you. So selfishly, it does make you feel good giving back in that way. But you can really see tangibly the difference that you're making to people's lives, and that is just a very rewarding experience.
Yeah, definitely. And just before I move on to our last question, there is a question from an attendee about how can technology, perhaps even AI, improve access to pro bono services. Could anyone maybe touch on that?
I'll talk a little bit about that, Dimitar. I think AI could be helpful, particularly with things like research tasks, preparation of documents and things like that. But I think pro bono is a very personal experience. I think a lot of the time clients do just want somebody to listen to their situation and their story and get their personal opinion on it. I don't think that would have quite the same impact if it was a computer on the other side of that conversation rather than a human being in person or on a video call or on the telephone. So there's definitely a place for AI, I think, in helping, as I said, research and things like that. But I'm not sure it will ever be a full replacement for that sort of personal conversation with the clients of pro bono.
Yeah, and I completely agree there. I think it will enable lawyers to take on more pro bono work because AI will help us kind of get that advice out quicker and the research done. But it's not going to replace the actual advice being given person to person, and it's such a big part of the job.
Definitely. And yeah, for my final question, Imogen, coming back to you, what advice would you give to someone who wants to make a difference through their legal career?
So join your firm's pro bono committee if there is one, or speak to colleagues about setting one up if there isn't. Speak to your colleagues about pro bono initiatives that they're working on or would be interested in working on. Also speak to your fee-paying clients about pro bono work that they do or causes that they support. There's often opportunities to collaborate with clients as well, and that can strengthen those relationships too. For instance, we've had some people from in-house legal teams at some of our fee-paying clients volunteer at our legal advice clinics. So I think just having conversations and getting involved, coming up with ideas, making suggestions for new projects to support will all help.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Imogen. And as a closer, I would like to run one final poll just to see what the attendees have got out of the session. So let me just pop that over the screen for the attendees. So what is your key takeaway from today? Is it understanding the importance of pro bono in the legal profession? Is it learning how to get involved in pro bono as a trainee or junior lawyer? Recognizing the role in improving justice? Discovering the skills and benefits of doing pro bono work, or something else? Thank you all. I see everyone's got quite a few different takeaways. A lot of you have said that you understand the importance of pro bono in the legal professional society, which is really great to hear. Thank you to everyone that's voted. Before it's great to see what you're taking from the session. And before you all go, just another reminder to attendees that we'll be sending out a link containing the recorded session. So please keep an eye out for that. And a survey will also be popping up once this masterclass has ended. So please fill that in to let us know how you enjoyed today and what other topics you'd like us to cover in the future. Remember to check out all our upcoming masterclasses on the events page on lawcareers.net. The event, the link to which will be in the follow-up email as well. And yeah, thank you very much once again to our panelists and everyone attending today. And we look forward to seeing you again next time.